what Unity has been saying for over 100 years. Essentially, it is God's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. What part of the kingdom do you want to claim this year? You want to be prosperous, you want to be happy, you want to be loved and loving, you want to be awake, you want to be peaceful, you want to be whole, you want something. And so the thing that you might start off with is, you know what I really wanted is a new job. And then you go from what I really wanted as a new job is, I really wanted to feel safe. Or I really wanted to feel like I make a difference. Importance or meaning in your life, however it shows up. But go to that, let that be your intention on a broader scale, not a simple scale. Well, Happy New Year. Nice to be here, isn't it? It's a beautiful year. I think 2025 has great promise for us. One of the things I've really thought about when it comes to this church and how 2025 will be is that I believe that we've gotten anxious enough about enough things that we're really going to focus on awakening. And it's just gotten to be the point where the average set of days, as we have experienced it over the last X number of, increasingly over the last few decades, has brought us to this point where the intention of awakening to our true nature will be pressed upon us because we are unhappy with the state of affairs. And I'm thinking it's the jack-in-a-box effect. Do you know that? Push it down, crank the handle long enough, and it pops up. And we're going to be this is 2025, the year to pop up, to awaken to your true nature. And by true nature, I mean to awaken to peace, happiness, and love, because that is your true nature. And so often we think, oh, well, it must be something really fantastic. It is. And it's been lying underneath your awareness at this point for your whole life. Occasionally it might pop up, but essentially it's under there waiting for your attention and willingness to stop thinking what you were thinking long enough to have that experience pop through into consciousness. So Michael Gadway, our resident intelligent person, has gave a very erudite beginning of a discussion about Patanjali's sutras, which are quite packed with wisdom, and it takes really someone to unpack it for you, I think, to get the flavor of it even. They're not quite so obvious. And in that, it expressly is saying to wake up, there's a couple of things that need to happen. And those things can come about in other ways other than the way that Michael was describing yesterday. But essentially it is that you need to come back to who you really are by stopping doing what's not you. And let me tell you where I think the not you originates. So as a child, as an infant really, you come into this world and you're pretty inept at this world as a baby. You need to be fed, clothed, you need your diapers changed, you need someone to hold you. You need a lot of things that you can't do for yourself. As a matter of fact, you can breathe, and that's about it. You don't have much going on as far as survival. And so being dependent on someone else, at some point along the lines, you're gonna not get what you want. And one of the things that can happen to a mind that's not fully formed and not really accurate about what's happening in the world is say, so what's wrong here? Something's wrong, I'm not getting my needs met, is it me? And that can be a seed thought that crystallizes, you know, like ice crystallizing and then expanding out to fill up the whole lake. That can be a seed thought that you carry with you indefinitely. So you have this basic belief that you're not enough, that you're missing, that something's wrong. Now, I think it's also built into our physiological bodies, which come out of the animal world, for us to be looking around to see what's wrong, because they did that constantly, and that's why their bodies survived and why our bodies are here today, is that we were on the lookout for what's wrong. So now we got two things going on. We got a fundamental decision that I might be the problem, that there's something wrong with me, and then you have a built-in mechanism to keep you constantly looking for where things are wrong. And so you look out on the world, and these are baked in so deep into your psyche you don't even notice the practice of that. It's just there. It's constant. It's not something you decided. It's something that is part of you as a human. But it's not something that you decided you wanted to be. What you have then lived outside of this framework of seeing the world, and you believe it to be true. You believe this is the way it is, although you're not even necessarily aware that you're doing it. This is the nature of it. I saw Wicked this weekend. I stayed awake for most of it, and the two main actors, the two to-be witches, are talking to each other, building friendships, and one tells her very superficial truth, and the other one says, I don't really want to talk about it, and she finally is convinced to talk about it. And then she says, you know, I'm just unlovable, or the equivalent. I don't know exactly what she said. And the superficial one looked at her and said, with deep wisdom, actually, she said, you know, that may be your secret, but it is not the truth. And many of us, most of us, I think, carry within us the secret that we're somehow wrong, bad, inadequate, something. And we have found a lot of proof for that in our life. And it is our secret that we don't really want to tell people, that core feeling that we just are wrong. Now, it comes in many flavors. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not lovable. You can pick your poison, but it's the same effect. It keeps you from recognizing your innate beauty, perfection, your love, happiness, and peace. And so if you take a moment to look at a newborn baby, it's pretty much like, I mean, when they're not crying, because they're not trying to get something to happen, they're pretty much kind of blissninnies, looking at the world with fascination. They have not quite formed this habit of thought. And so this is the human condition, a human condition that almost everybody shares, although it can be overcome. Now, there are several things that can happen to you when you realize this is the human condition, and those three things, I just heard a lecture, and I really like the way he said it. There are three doors. Door number one, you can just accept it and suffer with it and say, well, that's just the way it is, right? None of you are doing that because you're here. Door number two says, I'm going to deal with this on a psychological level, and I'm going to manage my unhappiness, my sense of inadequacy. I'm going to manage it. I'm going to do pretty well with this. And many of you are doing really well with that. Many of you have learned those skills. And for much of history, we've been trying to develop those skills, and we have gotten pretty good at it. And in the last 30 years, science has kicked in, and there are processes for doing that, one of which, quite beautifully, is gratitude. And if you want to stay happy for most of your life, you can stay in gratitude, right? Keep coming back to that, and you will manage this predicament that we're in. And the third one is to blow open and realize that your secret is not the truth, to solve the problem of awakening. And so one of the things I would like us to do as a church, especially in this year 2025, when we're in the midst of trying our best to awaken so that we might not suffer with anxiety and we might become a home place for people looking to find peace, love, and acceptance, no matter what their life is like, no matter what side of the political divide they're on, no matter how their life is going, whether they're wealthy or poor, whether they're successful or feeling a failure, that they can come here and find peace because we radiate peace. And we radiate love, and we radiate happiness. Because we are in that. That's who we are, as a collective. And so as a collective, what I'm going to ask you to do over and over is to come here often and to contribute your well-being to the development of the well-being of all of us here. Because I believe as a community, when you move into a decision, a collective decision to wake up to your divine nature of love, of peace, when you do that, you support everyone around you in finding that. And you'll do it at your home, and you'll do it at business, and you'll do it at the coffee shop, and you'll do it when you're playing pickleball. And, you'll do it. So it isn't just a simple walk in the park, probably, for most of us to get from where we are to permanent peace, love, and happiness. But it can be your intention to get there. And it may not happen in 2025 or 26 or 29 or 45 or whatever. It may not happen in the way you think it's going to happen ever, but you will move toward it whether you actually feel like you arrive. And many of you will feel like you arrive at the point where you go, baseline, my baseline is everything's okay. This is my baseline. Everything's okay. And I might have started this processing thinking I'm sometimes okay, sometimes not okay. And that may still be happening on the surface, but down in the depths of who you are, you're going to know everything's okay. Because you're not just you. You have joined back with the one presence, the one power, and you know it at some very deep and profound level. You will know it. And that knowing will set you free. Because what's been the outcrop of those two things that happen, your feeling of inadequacy and this built-in fear factor, is that we have begun to practice separateness to the extent that when we decide that we don't want to practice separateness, we can't get there very easily. And so we need community to help us, and we need a practice and a method of making that possible, because it isn't, for most people, something you stumble upon, but rarely. To make it more common, you need to practice, and you need a sangha, as I used to say in the East, the sangha, a spiritual community to help you. But you're here, so you got the sangha, and now let's do a practice. And the practice we had come up with this week was the practice of setting intentions. And the practice of setting intentions, you got a card. The little card will be a little bit of instruction about how to do it. But I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and I'm not asking you to do it now. Because when you go to set your intention, what I would really like you to do is to trace yourself back as far as you can into the problem or into the solution, one or the other, so that it really comes to help you in the most powerful way possible, because it's right on target for what you need and what you need now. So don't bother with the card, don't fill out the card now, unless it happens to be a revelation, and quite often when I'm talking that happens. And so what you need to do, though, is to connect. What we're trying to do is go from the surface here, which has been seeing the world as a problem, or ourselves as a problem forever, and try to get our intentions to line up in such a way that they carry us back to who we really are. Now, you could set an intention that I want to have a bigger house, and if that worked for you, that would be the right one. But I think in general, what you're going to want to do with your intentions is set them in a generalized way. So rather than say a very specific intention like, I intend to make $100,000 more this year than I made last year, or I intend to drop 25 pounds and to be on the cover of GQ magazine, bring it toward a state of well-being, toward a generalized state of well-being. What is it that, what in particular this year, right now, is a form of well-being that you most wish to have? And it will take some contemplation probably for you to come to that. But you know, if you consider that essentially what Unity has been saying for over 100 years, essentially it is God's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. What part of the kingdom do you want to claim this year? What part of the kingdom? You want to be prosperous, you want to be happy, you want to be loved and loving, you want to be awake, you want to be peaceful, you want to be whole, you want something. And so the thing that you might start off with is, you know what I really wanted is a new job. And then you go from what I really wanted as a new job is, I really wanted to feel safe. Or I really wanted to feel like I make a difference. Importance or meaning in your life, however it shows up. But go to that, let that be your intention on a broader scale, not a simple scale. And when you write your intention down, I would like you to do something on a separate sheet of paper, which is I'd like you to write down why it's not going, first, why you want it. Excuse me, several steps here. Why you want it. And write it out. I mean, generally when I'm told to write something out, I go, okay, I got it. But actually writing it out would probably be more effective than just thinking about it, because you engage the body, you engage different parts of your mind, etc. Write it out why it's important. And then underneath that, write what are going to be the obstacles to my success, because you are your biggest obstacle, and what about you is going to keep you from making that happen. Write it out. And then underneath that, write how you're going to get around it. How are you going to overcome your obstacle? How it's not going to be a problem. Figure out a plan. Because let's just be honest. If it was easy, you would have done it. By accident, you would have done it. So recognize it's not going to be, you're not falling off the turnip truck, you're making an intention, and you're planning to follow through with that intention because it means something to you and you know how to get around the obstacles. And then set a plan about how you're going to go about doing it. How are you going to go about doing it? Like, let's say I'm going to read this intention every morning. I'm going to hold a vision that this is going to work. I'm going to keep it a secret to myself so no one can take it down. I'm going to be actively moving it with my body. I'm going to believe it's going to happen. Make a plan. Incorporate those things. Do all that. And this intention will connect you back to the source of who you are. And when you have connected back to the source, you've connected back to everything. And now everything's on your side because you came not from the small self, but from the big self, not from the who you have unfortunately so often thought you were, back to who you really are. And when you connect with who you really are, you connect with the universe. And the universe has nothing better to do than give you the kingdom of heaven. Has nothing better to do than to join with you. Why? And it doesn't even know what it wants to do unless you tell it. Now you've told it, let's do this. And so it's off. So this is your chance, I think, really to approach the whole process of getting and becoming and needing and wanting and all that from a spiritual point of view. You want to approach this from the point of view as, how will I get back to experiencing my true nature? How will I experience love, peace, and happiness? The Holy Grail. How will I get there? By aligning yourself with the universe, by following your own need back toward the source. And remembering through the practice of intentional living that you are that. And you have had it underneath the whole time. I don't know exactly if Janine said this, but I was talking to Janine, and this is the image that came in my head, and it might have been something she said, or it might have been just how brilliant I am. Not really sure. But let's consider this possibility that, and I'm going to walk across the stage to show you, that you were born an infant, beautiful, pure spirit with a brand new thing, a body. You were over here. And that pure awareness started moving toward becoming somebody. And as it became somebody, it had all these restrictions placed upon its identity. It was essentially, but it was also given an identity. You are this, and you were given a name, you were given a place in this world, you're given a way you were supposed to act, you were given restrictions on who you could be, you were given all that. And it's sort of like if we were doing the bell curve thing, right? We come in here and we're building our personality, and it's really becoming us. That's who we are. We are this. We're a body and a mind, and that's who we are. And now this beautiful soul that came in is still moving along with us, but it's got this hump over it right now. And most of us, most people, will come down, and maybe as they approach death, they'll begin to have some reconnection with this, and then they die, and they go back to being just the spirit. And so this baseline here is with you your whole life. But this becomes your dominant experience of a separate sense of self. It becomes what you know yourself as. You have titles and possessions and idiosyncrasies and anger and love and distress and success. You have all that as a separate sense of self. And then when it's over, that goes away, and what you're left with is this again. Now, awakening, in my opinion, takes this bell curve and stops it. You come back down to here before you die. And I believe you're kind of guaranteed on that. If you die, you'll come back to this, no worries. But you will have lived this life with the turmoil that was built into it from this end over here. Just have that doing it, not doing it, relaxing, getting a 5-week vacation, and then I'm back at it, and the whole thing. You'll get that. Or you can awaken and you'll get this. Peace, love, and happiness. And so this is always here, underneath. It's who you really are. It's been there. It never changed, never left. Always, already, was always here. It's here. We just need to get back to it. And setting your attention can be one of the practices that gets you back to it. Okay, let us pray. Can you feel your body? Can you feel the beauty of breath coming in and going out? imagine that there is a time when you have nothing but happiness and love and peace as your predominant experience. And all that other stuff may happen occasionally, but you are peace, love, and happiness. Because you have come home and become who you always were. The divine made manifest. Let's set our intentions so we do, in some particular way, return home. And so it is. Amen.
I hope you got something out of today's service. We intend to bring you things that will help you in your life become more of who you want to be, give you the freedom of forgiveness and the hope of expectancy that your life will unfold in a way that brings you joy, happiness, and is a contribution to the world. If you would like to contribute to this ministry, please go to unitytriangle.org, hit the donate button, and it will lead you into an easy way of doing that. We thank you for your attention and look forward to seeing you again here.